All right, welcome everybody this morning to the uh, Deal Heal Fulfill community. Thank you guys once again for tuning in. We have a special guest this morning. We're going to bring her up in just a minute, but as always, do me a favor, really quickly. Hit that invite button and invite your suggested friends by Facebook. That is the people that Facebook has already think that will be a great fit for this community, not only to gain value from the community, but bring value to the community. So do me a favor, hit that uh, suggested friends and send to at least 10 of your suggested friends. Also, to all of our new members and current members, make sure you fill out the form in the feature section to get your free gift for being a member of this community. We will send you a free gift and also some extra information that we think is valuable that you should have. So make sure that you do that. Also, yesterday was podcast release day for the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. If you haven't already, make sure you go to our YouTube channel, the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network, and subscribe, and so that you don't miss an episode of our podcast of the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, which comes out every Wednesday, and also the Girl Dad Discussions podcast, which comes out on Fridays. In the month of February, which is just a day or so away, we will start releasing those episodes on Fridays again. So the Girl Dad Discussions podcast will be out starting Fridays in February, but the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast released every Wednesday, including yesterday. So make sure that you guys do that. So that being said, today, just like any other day, we are blessed with a guest, Miss K. Marie. How you doing?
I am doing amazing. How are you?
I am well. I am well. Thank you so much for joining me this morning for our Meet the Community interviews. Because I like to interview our members of the community, because I know how amazing you guys are, but everyone else doesn't because they don't know you here. So thank you for taking out the time to be here with me this morning. Do me a favor, introduce yourself to our community and let us know a little bit about who you are and what it is that you do.
So I say originally Lakeisha Campbell, but I go by K. Marie. And it's just kind of something that stuck with me. All my kids' names are K. My middle name is Marie. So when I started speaking, I don't know why, but it was just something about K. Marie. And I feel like it allows me to just kind of become the other person. You know, you kind of got that alter ego, the one that's like, don't mess with her. Like, that was just me. And when you deal with such a sensitive topic as I do with grief, and it being very emotional, very raw, and sharing my own personal journey with grief, it was almost my way to kind of separate myself a little bit, to find that strength in moments of sharing a story that, still hurts and always will. So I'm just someone who has experienced the challenges of life, and I have a different way of looking, a different unique way to understand grief, to understand the things that we come up against. And I share that in hopes to help others heal and learn from their own grief experiences.
Yeah. So I want to talk first of all. So your name is K. Marie, or you go by K. Marie. Your name is Lakeisha, and I remember first coming across you and just trying to get it to stick in my head like it's two different, because it was like two different names, but it's like, okay, it's the same person. And I remember when we met in person at the speakers conference last year when we went out to eat, and you was like, oh, that's Deal to Heal. And he was like, oh, I've been meaning to fill out the paperwork and stuff for the podcast. And I'm like, oh, okay, and then it's like, okay, K. Marie and Keisha, now they the same. Now I get it, And so, and we've not worked together, but we've definitely been connected in the speaking space. And we are working on something coming up soon that we're going to do some work together But do me a favor, because I know we know, but everyone doesn't know. Even though you did mention you talk about grief, everyone doesn't know your story and how you kind of got started in that space. So do us, and I believe your daughter's birthday is coming up soon.
It is the anniversary of her passing. So
Okay.
yes, Luna Day. So in 2020, it was Easter Sunday, April 12th. I decided to cook dinner last minute. My daughter just happened to FaceTime. She was with her godmother visiting, and she was like, "I'm going to come on home." It was early, about 2.5 hour drive. So she started her journey home, and just hanging out with my boys on the couch, and my phone rang, and then someone was knocking on my door. And I was a little confused and puzzled, and I opened the door while I'm answering the phone, and it was a moment that literally changed my life forever. You always hear about someone getting that phone call, and earlier in that year, Kobe Bryant and his daughter had lost their life as a result of a plane accident, and I remember thinking about his wife and losing a daughter. And I was like, never. I can never imagine, like, that would never be me. And just a few months later, it was me. And I just remember in that moment, a couple things happening. Like I instantly cried out to God. Like, I do everything you ask. Why mine? And then I said, I don't want it to be anyone else's. I just don't want it to be mine. And not in the moment, but later realizing we hear these stories about other people's griefs, but we just don't want it to be ours. So we don't think about that being a possibility. And for me, I had 2 boys that were on the other side of the door. And I think that's what got me up off the porch, because I didn't want to. I wanted to literally just melt and disappear in that moment. And it was a process of healing. And a lot of the things that I did while I was healing was I would write poetry and I would share it on social media, because it hurt so bad. I felt like if I put it out, somehow the world was going to help me. And that's when people said, you need to start sharing this on a more grand scale, which I wasn't ready at first, but over time, that's what I started to do.
So I want to ask you, because you mentioned about having 2 boys, right? And so we kind of share a grief story or a grief in common of losing loved ones. And I remember a couple of years ago, I did we having like a family and friends, whatever, at the church. I don't even remember what it was called, but it was like a family and friends thing. And it was like a 3-day event that we were having at the church. And we held different classes. And so I held a class that was dealing with grief. So this was after the passing of my mom. And one of the young ladies that was in the class, when it was over, she came up to me and she was like, "I'm mad at you." And I said, "Why are you mad at me?" And she said, well, her son, she had lost a son, I think to gun violence, but she had lost a son, and she never really grieved that son because she had 2 other sons. And so she immediately put her focus on her other 2 sons and began to pour into them and, make sure they were okay. And this was years later when we had this, this event at the church. And she said, it wasn't until today that I realized that I still hadn't actually mourned my son. I just kind of went into protective mommy mode for her other 2 sons. So in your experience, how did you deal with your grief? Did you actually have a chance to process it in the middle of still taking care of your other 2 sons? Or were you just kind of in that same boat, just like focused so much on them that you didn't even have the time to really process your own grief?
So for me, I was really, really blessed. Like, people around me were like, you need to go to therapy. My grief support person is my sister. It didn't matter what was going on, what time of day, what moment. It's almost like she put herself to the side to support me. And she was like, you need to go to therapy. And my therapist is the one who told me my boys needed to see me grieve, and it was okay, and to have those conversations. because they would not feel comfortable grieving. And then also explaining to them that what they're feeling is okay, because sometimes they feel like they have to be strong for you. I experienced that, especially with my youngest. He felt like he had to be strong for me. And I'll never forget my youngest son, Khalil, his birthday is the very next day. So Kamaria passed away on April 12th. April 13th is Khalil's birthday. So I remember us getting together at the house and celebrating his birthday, and I made it through. I was okay. And then May 18th, my oldest son's birthday, I was a mess. I remember sitting in the floor as he's opening his gifts, and I'm just bawling because him and his sister had become so close. And it was kind of that closeness, like where it's like, we're going to team up against mom and dad so you can kind of get what you want. And, he wanted a cell phone and he wanted to be able to start to use social media. And it's like, they just had that bond. And I was like, he was so cheated of that relationship. And I just bawled. And I remember people saying, Keisha, do you want to go in the other room? And I said, no, because I need my boys to understand, regardless of what's going on, if they're feeling this, they're missing their sister, they can express it and it's going to be okay. So we kind of healed together, and we talked about it. We talked about, our beliefs and what happens after you pass away and those things. And I think that gave my boys a lot of comfort because they didn't feel like our sister's just gone and we'll never have her again. They fully understood where their sister is.
Yeah, and I think that's important especially for young men, because oftentimes from an early age, and I think now we're kind of getting out of it, but definitely from when I was younger and before, it was always those, mantras of, big boys don't cry and, man up and, don't show your emotions. And so now I think it's very important for us to definitely let our sons know, especially when dealing with grief, like it's okay to be able to express how you feel, right? It's okay to go through those emotions. And so I'm glad that you had that experience. And I often talk about a experience that I had when I was a teenager. And I think that, I remember this because of the work that we do now, right? Because this happened, I was probably like 17 or 18 years old, probably 18, 19 years old. And I remember going to the corner store. It's probably like 9 o'clock at night. I go to the corner store with me and my cousin, and we're in the, the little convenience store getting things together. And so these two guys walk in, and it's probably almost like 7 or 8 people already in the store. And they were in the line at the register waiting to be waited on. And so these two guys come in, and one guy is probably like, medium size, like my size, maybe like 5'3" or something like that. But the other guy is a big guy, look like he probably could play football. Like he's a large guy, and the bigger guy is crying, right? And so they come in the store. The big guy is crying. The younger guy, or should I say, the smaller guy is kind of trying to console him. And these are two African American guys. Which first of all, we don't. Generally, number one, we don't show emotion a lot of the time, and definitely not in public. So you got two adult males and one very large guy, and he's crying. And so they ended up being in front of me and my cousin in the line waiting to get to the register. And just by the conversation that they were having, I could tell that it was a woman. I don't know if it was a sister or mom or anything like that, but I know it was a woman who passed away. And the bigger guy is crying, and he's trying to, the smaller guy is trying to console him. And so this line is taking a long time, because there's a lot of people there. It's like 9 o'clock at night. So he's trying to console him. And then the big guy just turns around and he hits the top of the counter with his fist, like really hard. And it's just like one of those moments in the movies, like when everything stops, it was like that. He like, boom, he hit the thing and he's like, I just want some cigarettes. And so everybody that was in front of him was like 5 people. They like moved out the way and just let him go to the front, to get his cigarettes. And he got the cigarettes and then they walked out the store. I don't think I ever seen them guys before that. And I know I never seen them after, but that moment stuck with me of seeing this, guy trying to deal with his grief, and I never forgot that. And so now as a man, as going through, having been through my own grief and been through bereavement of things like that, it's very important to me to let other men know, like, it's okay, like, we're dealing with this, and not just men, but even, people in our community. Because when my mom passed away, and I went through bereavement support, and I was there for my sessions. I think we had like 8 to 12 sessions, and I stayed there for my sessions, and I enjoyed it so much that I stayed as a volunteer for like over a year. But during that whole time that I was there, we only had one African American family to come through that program. And I'm like, I know it's not because we're not dying. You know what I mean? I know it's not because we're not losing people, but we're either we're afraid, or we just don't know about the resource to be able to come into, take bereavement and really sit down and talk about your emotions. So in your experience, I know you excuse me, I know you said you went to the therapist, and you had your sister to kind of work through it. But even as you've been doing this work and sharing the story of your daughter, how connected would you say, or how open are some of the people when you start talking about getting that help, seeing a therapist or looking for some kind of support group to support you during this season?
I feel like a lot of people don't really understand the resources that are there. I will tell you, there's different stages. There are some people, especially in the beginning of grief, who don't feel like they deserve to be healed. They don't feel like they deserve to not be in pain. And I remember that. I remember thinking, I will fake happiness because I'll never be happy. Who am I to be happy and my daughter is not here? So I'll fake it. Not even doing all the work in therapy, and I have some things in the works where I'm hoping to share that on a larger scale. So I can't wait to make that announcement. But just my therapist, literally specifically telling me, Keisha, this is something you have to work on because you're angry and you're projecting your anger somewhere else. And I wouldn't even do the work, and I was in therapy, which was slowing down the healing process. And then you have some people who are desperate to heal, but they want it instantaneously. And It's like, it doesn't work that way. And there are some people who don't even understand their grief. We put grief with someone passing away. And I was talking to a lady who had pretty much worked her whole life in this job, this career, building it with a partner, doing all these things, and pretty much did the deal on a handshake and lost her entire company. And she was just distraught and angry and upset. And I said, have you grieved that? And she was like, what do you mean? I said, you created this company. You had an imagination of what this was going to look like. You imagined your life a certain way. And in a moment that was stolen from you, and you've had to adjust. Have you grieved the life you imagined that no longer exists? And she was like, oh my gosh. In a moment, like, she instantly understood why she was so angry and couldn't let it go. She couldn't let go of this thing that she had imagined and envisioned to be able to heal from that. And that is probably the biggest thing that I'm learning about grief. It happens all the time, daily, in moments that we don't expect it, because we don't know that it's grief.
Yeah, and I like that. Two things that you said. One, you mentioned about a lot of times people don't understand their grief, right? And they don't understand the process of it. And that's why I always say it's called the grief wheel for a reason, because it never stops rolling. You know what I mean? It just, sometimes it rolls on a smooth ground, and sometimes you hit them bumpy roads, but it never stops rolling. So once you've experienced grief, it always stays with you. It's just a matter of, and I can't even say it's just a matter of how far you've come when you heal, because again, sometimes it is smooth, and then sometimes you wake up and it's just like that day, and it's just like, man, what's the significant about today that I'm feeling this, these emotions all over again? And that's just kind of how it rolls. And the other thing that you said about even mentioning about the young lady experiencing the grief of the loss of her company is the fact that we do always equate grief with the loss of a loved one. but it can be a loss of anything. You know, it could be a pet, it could be a job, it could be a career, you know, it could be just grieving the life that you thought you would have and realize that your dreams didn't come through, at least not the way that you wanted it to. Excuse me. And then you start grieving that because it's just a different experience. So it's really learning to grieve with any kind of loss. You know, we think about losing loved ones because that's probably has the most impact and part of the most shared grief that we have as a community. But yeah, it can be grieving the loss of anything. You know, anything that means enough to you, where it's like, okay, without that thing, it's like, man, you know, it just it hits you. That's yeah. So I like that.
Yes, I will tell you how important it is, and there's a lot to my story that I've just begun to share. Like, I'm recently just starting to talk about the fact that I've been in an abusive relationship, and I will tell you, not completely being healed from the grief, you can allow yourself, excuse me, to be in situations because you fear grief. And I got to where I was in a situation that I was more fearful of going through the pain of grieving that relationship than I was the pain of the abuse. I would rather stay in a relationship where someone talked to me in the most horrible ways you can imagine, just physically at times, and maybe that's why I endured it, because it wasn't so much physical, but the mental and verbal abuse. But I did not want to grieve the loss of the relationship. I feared it. I was scared to be alone, scared to endure that loss again and what it would do to me. And I kept it secret and didn't share it until there was just an incident and it was obvious. My family found out and knew, and I'm grateful. I'm so grateful because I really got to put the work in. I really got to put the work in. And it opened my eyes to understand why it's so important to heal from grief. Because had I been healed, there's no way. There's no, I wouldn't have put up with, I would have been gone in the beginning. Red flag, I'm out. So I think that's why it's so important to do the work and get help and reach out, and especially in our community, because it's why we see so much violence. These young men and women who are so angry and upset and hurt, and sometimes they don't even know it really stems from grief, because the way they imagine their life is not what it is. Mm-hmm. And who's to blame? And how do I work through that?
Yeah, I love it. Keisha will be on here all day. I don't want to keep you all day, but we are working on something coming in a couple of months. We're aiming for it for May. We'll talk more about it later. But is there anything that you have coming up that you want us to know about to be able to support you as a community here? Anything, new releases, anything?
I do have something huge coming, and I wish I was close enough to where, because it'd be perfect if I could announce it today. I just have to ask that, people follow along. I'll definitely, as soon as I can, announce it to you so you can put it out there. But I feel like that it is going to be a huge breakthrough for those who are going through grief. So it's coming very soon, and I'm so excited. I can't wait.
No problem. Just let us know. Again, we can always have you back on, and we can talk about it all over again and have this conversation and announce what it is. And even as it gets closer, we can even talk more about what we're working on together, and that'd be great. So thank you so much. Real quickly, what is your social media handles and things where we can follow you?
I am K. Marie Speaks on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I kind of bounce around. So people can message me. I respond to all messages. And it's me responding. So reach out.
All right. Thank you so much. I'm going to say Keisha, K. Marie, yes. Whichever one. Thank you so much for being taking out the time to do this Meet the Community interview. Before you go, all my people, do me a favor, hit that invite button and invite someone, invite your suggested friends or all your friends to be a part of this community. Also, make sure that you are sign up, excuse me, that you fill out the form in the featured section to get your free gift. And I want to say thank you again to our community. We are a growing community. We are almost at 600 people. And so we've been growing a lot just within this last month. And I definitely appreciate everyone who came to be a part of the community. And just, again, this is our community, not just my community. So let me know what you guys want, what it is that, you feel will be more impactful. I've definitely shared my own stories and my own point of view, but I want everyone to have a chance to, speak their mind and add to the community so that we all grow together. So that being said, feel free to, chime in, send me a DM, or just send, do a post, and I'll, go through it and make sure it's acceptable for the community and post it. So yeah, we're all here. We're all here. This is our community. We're here to support each other and help each other to fulfill our purpose. And that being said, thank you guys very much. Until next time, you guys be blessed.